Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam, alhamdulillah, wassalam. All praise is due to Allah, Rabb, cherisher and sustainer of all the worlds. May peace and blessings be upon the noble messenger, his family and companions. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. I'm going to add a little bit to Dr. Abdullah's remarks. I've been in this country in Abha. I just started my 22nd year in Commissioner Shea at the King Khalid Air Base. I became a Muslim in the year 2000, which is coming up on 13 years in April. I spent a large portion of that time in the Abha Dawah Center, more than 8 years now. I started making dawah shortly after I became Muslim. I was lucky to be involved with some people, like my brother Musa back there. We taught each other. I taught him about how to talk to people in English about Islam, and he taught me a lot about Islam. So if you're lucky enough, and if you stay close to people, and the right people, don't just choose anybody, choose the right people, you will end up benefiting each other. My spiritual journey started when I was born, just like everybody else. And I'm hoping it hasn't ended yet, because if my spiritual journey has ended, that means I'm dead. This is something you carry with you your whole life. Sometimes it can become stale, but it never ends. That's okay, I'll just talk about her. Ignore them, they're not there. Most of my life I spent with other people than my mother and my father. We were extremely poor, and my mother and father have 5 children and they couldn't afford them, so most of my time I spent with my grandmother, grandfather, and uncle. On my grandfather's side, on my mother's side, their name is Wesley, their last name. And if you know some of the history of some of the Christian religions, John Wesley brought the Methodist Church to the United States. First from Germany, then he went to England, and then he traveled to the United States, and he's the founder of the Methodist Church. A long time ago, a couple of 100 years ago. It didn't mean much to me because I wasn't raised as Methodist. I didn't find out about this until after I became Muslim, a few years back. I was raised as what's called a Nazarene, and I didn't remember this until recently. We went to a church the whole time I was growing up. It was called the Mount Olive Country Chapel, but it was also called Church of the Nazarene. When I was studying recently about the Nazarenes, I found out that they didn't believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God. So it seems like a natural for me to just keep going in the same direction. On my father's side, my grandmother's name was White. If any of you know any more Christian history, Ellen White is the founder of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is probably the second biggest church in the United States. It has many people inside of Kenya, Ghana, all over the coast of Africa have become Seventh-day Adventists. Alhamdulillah, this helps me when I go to talk to them to tell them, yeah, my grandmother was the one that founded your church and she was wrong. So these are the kinds of things you have to draw on your history, your past, your life when you're talking to other people. They know about their life, but they don't know about yours. So draw on these things to talk to other people. Later on in life, as I think it was about 16 or 17 years old, I had a fiance, and she belonged to a church called the Church of Christ. I joined their church and was baptized into the Church of Christ, but I had a problem with believing everything they were telling me. And I was raised not to believe Jesus was the Son of God, and now they're saying, when you pray, you must pray in Jesus' name. And I said, no. Why? Show me why. And the minister showed me in the Bible a passage, and I said, no, I don't believe this. Somebody's added this. I can't believe it. So I fought with myself for years about these details that they were telling me. The way I was raised and now the way they were telling me. If you know any of the history of the Christian church in 1972, there was a big revision of the Bible. So when they revised the Bible, they added some stuff in, took some stuff out, and the ministers and preachers of the time, because they were young, they started preaching what was in the Bible. Later in my speech, I will show you that most Christians don't read. We don't know anything other than I'm Christian, and maybe I can tell you what denomination I am. If I go to church, I can tell you what denomination. It doesn't mean I know anything about it. If I ask you what kind of Muslim you are, you'll say, oh, I'm a Sunni Muslim. And maybe you could talk for days and weeks and months about your religion. You ask a Christian in the first 5 minutes, he's done. That's all he knows. You'd be very lucky if he even knows how many books of the Bible there are, where to find anything. You ask him, where does it say that Jesus is God? Well, it says it. Well, yeah, show me. No, I don't know. So it was hard for me to understand these things, and the things they were teaching me I could not believe. It led later on to me becoming a Buddhist. About 20 years later, I became Buddhist. But Buddhism didn't stick either, because I found they were saying things that were not in their book either. I was in the construction trade with my grandfather and my uncle. My grandfather, he's dead now, mashallah. But he used to love to tell a story about how I started working when I was 3 years old. He was building his own house, which was a tradition in the place I come from, in a small village. We didn't hire people. You were lucky if you had enough money to buy cement and rocks to build your house. He was pushing a wheelbarrow, you know, the one with the single wheel and the handles, full of dirt from up on the top of the hill down to put in the foundation of the house. And he noticed that every step he took, I was right along beside him. So he stopped work and he went and he found a small wheel and some wood, and he made a wheelbarrow for my size for 3 years old. And every time he went up the hill, he would fill my wheelbarrow full, and then he would fill his wheelbarrow full.
You were 3, huh?
3 years old. That's why I'm the size I am today.
Good exercise.
So that's when I started working, and that's when I started construction, started building houses and other things with my family. My whole life I worked hard and listened to what they taught me. They taught me everything I needed to know about my religion. At about 18 years old, I joined the military, the United States Air Force. This was in 1973, and if most of you remember, during that time there was the Iran crisis where there was no oil, there was no jobs, nothing in the United States. So it made sense to me to join the military. I stayed in the military for about 14 years. Saw many different people. I didn't see any Muslims, but I saw many different types of Christianity and Jews, and saw many things. At 14 years, I decided I had enough. I got out of the military, and the people said, well, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to Saudi Arabia to work. And why I said that, I still don't know. I didn't know where Saudi Arabia was. I knew nothing about it. But that's what I said. And sure enough, 6 months later, I went to Saudi Arabia. When I was leaving home, my grandfather, who usually didn't have much to say, he was a man of few words, he said, well, goodbye, good luck, come back and visit. And he said, don't let them Saudis turn you into a Muslim. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, okay, what is a Muslim? I had no idea what he's talking about, and I didn't even know he knew what a Muslim was. To this day, I didn't know. So I kept thinking, about what are Muslims, and he didn't give me any clues. He didn't tell me anything else. Bye, and he was gone. And I got on the plane to come to Saudi Arabia. I came to Riyadh in 1986. And if it's the first Arab country you've ever been to, and you're dumped off in Riyadh, it's quite a shock. But once I got over the shock, and started to get acclimated to the weather because it's very hot in Riyadh. It's miserably hot. I got there in October, alhamdulillah, and I had 3 or 4 months to get used to that, and then the heat came. Once I got used to where my surroundings were and what I was doing, I started to try to find out the difference in these people and the people where I come from in my home. I kind of had to come to the decision that there's not much difference in Muslims and Christians. I don't know if it's because of the place I work, because I was working on a military base again, and I see people who are used to speaking English, they're used to dealing with foreigners. Many aircraft companies, many people have been there before me. I was amazed to see that they're not much different. They were stealing things just like other people in other countries. They were committing adultery, they were chasing women, they were drinking, and even they had the courage to offer it to other people. So my understanding of what Muslims was, it's just like everywhere else. So in the year 1989, my contract finished and I went back to the United States to work as an aircraft mechanic for Boeing Aircraft Company. But the whole time I was there, I kept thinking to myself, it felt like something wasn't finished. Like I should be back here. And I didn't have that pleasant of a time, so I was wondering, what did I expect? But I looked and I found another contract in the beginning of 1991 right after the war had stopped the first time. And I got a contract here in Abha, or Khamis Mashay, which I had no idea where Khamis Mashay was, or if it was even in Saudi Arabia. I took the contract and came back here, and right away I noticed a difference. It was not like Riyadh. These people seemed to be different. These were what we call at home as country people. People who live in the village, people who are used to taking care of each other, not just go to work, come home, do this, go to work, come home. Forget about the guy next door, he makes more than me anyway, he don't need no help. We call those country people. If the neighbor next door was sick, everybody knew it, everybody helped. That's the kind of people that I found when I got here. It made it easier for me, and I was surprised when the first day I went to the shop to work that all of the Saudis there, nobody was smoking except for one man. Only one man, and they were all trying to get him to stop. SubhanAllah, it's not like that now. There's only one man that doesn't smoke. But back then I was amazed by this, the camaraderie and the things that I was used to at home. So I was quite surprised and quite pleased to see the people that I worked with and the kind of people they were. You meet people from all kinds of small villages. When you first come here, you think, oh, all these people are from Khamis. The Saudis don't typically go to Riyadh, but then you find you have people from all over, from Jizan, from Beish, from Baha. It's all in this area. And they're all the same kind of people. They come from small villages all over to here. While I was in Riyadh, nobody ever invited me to Islam. Nobody ever talked to me about Islam. So it's no wonder I went back home thinking I knew less about Muslims than I thought I would. I never got a book. I never heard the word Bible. I don't know what a Dawah center is. I know I've seen them go pray sometimes, and I know basically how they did it, but I didn't have any understanding of it. I had a prayer rug myself, and I remember when I went home, I found one American Muslim who was praying on the ground, and I gave my prayer rug to him. I can remember that when it came time for prayer, I had to tell him to go pray. I was their trainer, and it was time to pray. I said, time for you guys to go pray. And they never seemed to be smiling or happy about it when I reminded them to go pray. For the next 9 years after I got to Riyadh, surprisingly enough, it was the same treatment. Nobody offered me a book. Nobody talked to me about Islam. I saw a little more of them being active, and you didn't have to remind them to go pray, but they didn't seem to want to share. It was like a hidden secret. I didn't ask them no questions, and they didn't tell me anything, so I guess it was a two-way street. But I really didn't know what question I wanted to ask. If you don't know anything about Islam, what question are you going to ask? Ask why you prayed. They'll say, because Allah said to. But that's maybe about the biggest answer you get, but I didn't get any answers. Nobody invited me. Nobody invited me to the Dawah Center, nowhere else. Once in a while they would invite us to go to the sea to play volleyball or something like that. And I would see them praying and how they were acting. About 9 years after this, it's in the year 2000, no, not 2000. It was about 5 years, so it was about 1996. There was a Saudi chief who, he was late for work or something, and I showed him some courtesy and said, don't worry, we'll take care of it, everything's all right. That's just being a human being, not anything special. But he was very, very excited. Oh, thank you. And he says, you've done me a big favor. I have to repay it. I said, I don't want nothing. I don't need nothing. What are you going to give me? He said, anything you want, just ask me. I said, okay. Do they have a translation of a Quran in English? How many years I've been in Saudi Arabia and I don't even know there's an English translation? He said, yes. I said, okay, bring it for me. I said, I need it. He looked at me kind of crazy, but he said, okay, I will bring it. But it took him a lot of time, maybe 3 months before he brought it. He said he was looking for just the right one, and still don't know what he was talking about, but he brought a Yusuf Ali version translation of the Quran. If that's the one he chose, that's the hardest one to understand. So if you guys want to bring a Quran to somebody, don't take Yusuf Ali. It's the hardest for the Americans to understand, because it's written in old world English that we don't speak and we don't understand anymore. But he brought me this Quran, and it laid on my desk. And whenever I had a trainee who was having trouble with English, I would practice with this. I'd bring him and I'd say, okay, read this. And I'd make him read the English side of the translation of the Quran. And whenever he got to a word he didn't understand or something he didn't understand, I'd say, okay, read the Arabic side. And he would read the Arabic side and he'd say, oh, now I understand. So it's a good book for teaching English. That's what I thought. In the field that I work, sometimes you work late at night, sometimes you work weekends, there's not always somebody there, and you're alone. So when you're alone, you'll pick up anything to read. So I had the Quran on my desk, and I would pick it up and read it. I like to read about the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I like some of the similarities, finding out that he got his mission at 45 years old, and I was close to that age. And I read about Yusuf and how he was 40, and most of the prophets were over 40 when they got their enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, mission in life. That's what we would call it in America. But one day, maybe 5 years after that, and sometimes I considered myself during that 5 years to be Muslim, which would not be strange for me as an American and a Christian before, because our religion is personal for us. My religion is up to me, it's not up to him. If I'm a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. He may never know. My workers next to me may never know if I was a Christian or what kind of Christian I was. And at that time I was not Christian, I was Buddhist when I was reading. And I always thought that was funny, that I became Buddhist. My mom, my dad, nobody got angry at all. And Buddhists are atheists. When I became Muslim and started believing in God again, they were all upset. It doesn't make any sense. Didn't believe in God? Okay, you're all right. Believe in a Muslim God? No, you're crazy. Get you off to the nut house, get you fixed. And many people have said this, especially the Buddhists. So this Quran stayed on my desk, and I read it, and they read it, and one day about 5 years later, there was somebody talking to another American, and he was asking him questions, and it was my habit to listen whenever somebody was talking. That's something my father taught me. So I was listening, and he said, do you believe in only one God? The man said, yes, I do. He said, do you believe that Muhammad was the prophet of God? He said, no, I don't. But when he asked those questions, I said yes to both questions. But he didn't hear me. He was not listening to me. He was listening to the other man. But after he finished talking to the man, I went and talked to him, and I said, yes, I have believed those things for many years. I consider myself to be a Muslim. So the next day, he took me to the Dawah Center, and I said, Shahada, and became a Muslim. But that's only the first step. It took 46 years to get back to the place where I was when I was born. And that's only the first step. The rest of it after that is much harder than saying Shahada. We as Christians are not used to reading. We take our religion sometimes from the minister or preachers or imam, as you call them. For us as Muslims, for new Muslims, we must read. We have to read. We have to have people around us who can lead us in the right direction. So just going to somebody and saying, would you like to be a Muslim? And they say yes, and alhamdulillah, it's over, it's finished. It's a long way from finished. It's the beginning of the spiritual journey, and it should last until you die, put in the grave. I promised to give 15 minutes, and it's 7:15, so any question they want to ask about how to make dawah or anything, I have taught classes in the Dawah Center about making dawah. I have many students now, mashallah, who are making dawah here in Kamis and other places in the world. Some back in the Philippines, some are back in the United States. So any question you want to ask, the floor is open. I don't know where the microphone is.
At first, I would like to thank you for sharing your spiritual journey. I have 3 questions. I hope I will get short answers, not taking long time. First, you said you were Christian, then Buddhist, then you converted to Islam. So I want to know what made you sure after converting to Islam that you finally reach the real truth, the real deed.
Most human beings are born with the knowledge inside them that you know when somebody's lying to you. You don't always trust it, but you know. If somebody says one thing in this book and something in this book, then somebody's lying. And you know it. Sometimes you just continue to follow, even though you know it's a lie, because maybe there is some truth in there. And at the time I had nothing else.
So the second question, that when you started to read about Islam and read translation of Quran, what the single point attracted you most to the Quran? Is the same answer, or there is certain point you have read, certain information you have known about Islam that let you see in your mind, this is the truth?
Well, all throughout the Quran, the one single thing that's taught more than anything else is Tawheed, the belief in only one God, which goes back to my original belief, the belief in only one God. I never believed that Jesus was God or Son of God. And in the Quran, Muhammad is the same thing. They never teach that he is God. Those are the beginnings of the things that you learn. And also some of the other things like companionship, how everybody's equal, nobody is above the other one. You know, sometimes in Christianity, just because somebody went to college for 4 years, he's closer to God than I am, and that's not true in Islam. There's a lot of things. It would take all day to tell you all of them.
Yes, but sometimes there is one thing when let you take the decision, this is the right thing. I mean, to clarify more my question, your original religion, you believe in one God. You don't believe Jesus is the Son of God or something like this. So it's almost closer to Islam. This helped you to accept the truth of Islam, the fact in Islam, that there is only one God. What is the difference, what is the next point different in Islam, between Islam and your original religion that let you leave your previous beliefs? Yes, that's what I want.
My religion is based on me. It's not based on all of you other Muslims. It's based on me. How good I do is going to show up in the next line. It doesn't matter about you.
Sorry for taking long time. The last thing, I want to know a website that has trusted translation for Quran.
Islamhouse.org.
Okay, thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First and foremost, I'm very grateful and thankful to those who conduct such a wonderful lecture. Then again, if I come to my question, I have a couple of questions. The first question, according to Holy Quran, the Jews are cursed people, al-mawdu' alayhi. And Christians are strayed, badly. They have lost their way from the truth. So in this sense, in what aspects they have strayed from the truth, or in what way they have lost their way to the truth? Is the first question. The second question, Christians, they believe in Trinity. If you come to the notion of Trinity, if they believe in a religious point of view, why don't you see that or why don't you see it from the logical point of view? From the logical point of view. And thank you very much. Shukran.
First question was about
how can the Christian, why describe that they have gone astray? They have gone astray in what way?
mainly because their book is not protected. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that the Quran will be protected until the end of the time. But the messages of Isa and the other prophets is lost. God did not protect it. Allah did not protect it. And their people have changed it. It was not Allah who changed the message, it was people. And since the time of each prophet, it has been changed. And it continues to be changed. They've had 5 major revisions in the Bible, is by itself. The books of the Jews have been lost 3 times, completely destroyed, burned, not with even 1 copy left, and they've done it from memory. Anytime you trust man to use his memory, you're lost. The second question was about Trinity, I think, correct?
Yeah.
Trinity is something new, it's not very old. It was not believed by the original followers of Jesus. They were called Nazarenes. You remember me telling you I belong to the Church of the Nazarenes. The original followers were the Nazarenes, and they didn't believe in any of this. The Trinity, they didn't believe in it. None of these things. These are something that came later. There's something they can't even prove now. They try to prove Trinity, and they go so far off in space, you think you need a spaceship to fall in. I haven't yet to meet anybody yet who can give you any kind of a definition of what Trinity is. They'll say Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but they don't know where it comes from.
Assalamu alaikum. I will ask you one question. I faced one problem 4 years before when I was working in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. In one of our projects, there are 80% non-Muslim and we are 20% Muslims. And this 20% Muslim was just like Muslim. And you know, we are same like non-Muslim by practical. There was one of our construction manager, his name was Rudy Ibrahim. He was going to preach the Christianity inside. I feel after 2-3 months, and he invited me to come to the meeting room. And every morning in the meeting room, he used to pray this Bible. His talim. He tell me, come. I tell him, okay, I will come with you, but you have to also come with me to the mosque. We have one mosque inside the project. I go inside one day, just I see what they are doing. They say something which I not understand, but one thing they make shit which I don't like it. So next time I didn't go inside the meeting room. When I tell him something about the Muslims, he give me one word and then I cannot answer him. He tell me your Muslims are doing all these things. They take wine, they take alcohol, they're going for the girl, they're going to the clubs, everything, you know, in Dubai. So I didn't answer how to deal the Christian for such type of answer. This is my question. If they say something like this about our act, how to give them reply? This is not easy question. How to give them reply? Khalas, my head go with the shame.
You have to be patient with them. They don't have, their religion is based on false hopes and guidelines, and they really are messed up. If he asked me to come, I'd be happy. We'd have a good time, believe me. But they like to find these people who don't know anything about what they're talking about and turn it all around and run them all around in circles because they know they can't answer. So that their parishioners or people behind them say, oh, look how smart our preachers, our ministers so smart. But they will never ask anybody who has any answers to their questions. Me personally, I like to answer their questions. And I have some questions, and about 12 years ago I gave 20 questions, and I have never got the answers back. Not even one in 20 years. If it takes you more than 20 years to answer 12 questions, you're in the wrong religion. They have questions that they don't understand, and they try to use the philosophy that they've all used their whole life with Christianity, and it won't work in Islam. Always go back to the first point. I don't care what he says, just like Ahmadiyya. Don't care what they say. Always take them back to Tawheed. Do you believe in only one God? And use their Bible to prove it to them. It works, believe me. Ask Dr. Abdullah. Recently we had an American here who fought and fought and fought and could not get out of the way. He could not answer the question. He got to the very end, he could not answer my question. From his book. And we didn't never use the Quran. We used his book. If you can't answer people's questions, find somebody who can. Get a phone number of somebody you can call. Tell them I'm not a scholar of the Bible, and I don't want to be the scholar of the Bible. I don't understand what you're telling me. If you ask me questions, I will get an answer for you. They will come up with stupid questions, believe me. I've had some of the stupidest questions in the last 12 years. I can't even remember many anymore. There's so many. If you're going to preach Islam, if you're going to be a Hada'i, just prepare yourself for lots of questions. But if you tell somebody, I will get an answer, make sure you do. Don't put him off. Find an answer and go back and give it to him. If you knew the real questions he asked, it would help. I could probably help you, but because I have no idea what he was talking about. You know, in the Philippines alone, there are 2,800 registered different types of Christians. There's no way for me to know what question or even what sect of Christianity who you were talking to. It's all right, that's the best I
You have a question from the sister side? Do you have the microphone? Go ahead if you have a question.
What are the most important accents which our Ummah is really missing in today's world, according to your view and experience?
What was that? Can you repeat your question, please? I couldn't hear
What are
you.
the essential things that are missing in the Ummah right now?
In the Ummah or the world?
In the Ummah.
Small question, big answer. The basic thing is most of us are not following any of the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The small ones or the big ones. There's some very easy to follow. If you try to even ask one Muslim now, why don't you follow the Sunnah? You'll get a big fight, usually. If he doesn't tell you you're crazy and that's not the Sunnah, then he wants to fight, oh, it's Sunnah, they don't have to follow it. It's a simple thing like growing a beard. You ask most of the people why you don't have a beard. He says, no, it's Sunnah, I don't have to. He probably doesn't even know there's different kinds of Sunnah. If it says it's wajib, which means obligatory, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, cut your mustache, grow your beard. I'm in the military, that's an order. Follow the order. He didn't give me an option. He didn't say if you want to. This is a question that gets asked most of the time by Yusuf Estes. And he'll ask a question, so I'll ask you the question. Do Muslims have to grow a beard? No. Only the men.
It's a tricky question.
Tricky answer.
There are some people who can't. There are reasons, and we understand this. But for some, it got so serious one day that my bus driver for work told me, tomorrow don't ride my bus. Don't talk to me no more. I don't want to see your face. He said, why? He said, because you're not following the Sunnah. Which Sunnah? And he can't hardly speak English. He's from Egypt, mashallah. He said, you're supposed to cut. I said, brother, he doesn't speak English very well, so I'm really having a difficult time. And I told him, I said, no, this is not correct. This is only one man who did it after Hajj. But the Prophet ﷺ said, cut your mustache, grow your beard. No, tomorrow I'll do Pride Members. You're not accurate Muslim. So the only thing I could do was to call somebody. So I called Dr. Saeed al-Bishri from the Dawah Center. I said, please talk to this man before we start killing each other. And he talked to him and explained to him, this is why you have to. And maybe 5 minutes, and then he gave me a phone back, and his face is all red. He said, I owe you a Pepsi. I'm sorry. But you get these arguments from people. Mashallah, he had no beard. He's worried about me trimming mine, and he has none. So we need to go back to following the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the quickest and the only fix I know of.
Any more questions from the sister side? Brother side. Brother.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How to believe the non-believers to embrace Islam and give the surah that the Islam escape to the hellfire.
Say it again. How to invite
the disbelievers in Islam, and what is the proof that they will be saved, or they will be saved in the hereafter if they embrace Islam.
The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, always invite all non-Muslims to Islam through Tawheed. You're wasting your time talking about zakah and all these other things, and he doesn't even believe in God. You have to start with the belief in one God. When its foundation is finished after that, and he believes in one God, then you would ask for him to believe in the Prophet Muhammad. And depending on which religion it is, some of their books, no matter which book it is, all has something to say about belief in one God and the Prophet Muhammad. I know in India they're talking too much about the Hindu books and how much they have talking about Tawheed and the Prophet Muhammad. I don't know that they say it by name, because I heard some of Zakir Naqs, but I'm not sure about all of them. Mostly myself, I've been studying about Christianity. I understand you want the verse that says they will be saved from the hellfire if they become Muslim. I don't know the exact reference. Does anybody else know the reference? Please leave your name with Dr. Abdullah or somebody else so that we can find the verse number to give to you, okay? I can't see him. I don't know if he's... Next week or something, talk to Dr. Abdullah so that I can get you the verse, okay? Because I don't have it memorized.
Assalamu
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for telling us your spiritual journey, and I think that you have much experience that we need to be familiar with. So, my question is, I think that there were some questions which struck your mind as a Christian, and I think that maybe you didn't find the answers of these questions while you were a Christian.
No.
However, when you embrace Islam, I think that you find these answers. So why don't you write down such questions with their answers just for the benefit of all Muslims?
There are 2 books I have written that are in the Dawah Center. If you want to start there, that's a good place to start. And I have a book that I have put together. It's called Yahya's Dawah book. It has 20 chapters that I keep updating with questions. Such as recently a question was asked to me, how do you explain what is deen? Some people say that it means religion, and then others say, no, it does not mean religion. They're all correct. It's a question that's hard to answer. To us, deen means a way of life, because Islam is a way of life. There's a verse in the Bible that says, pray unceasing. And Christians ask, how are we supposed to pray unceasing? Nobody can pray unceasing. We as Muslims can. If you follow this, deen is a way of life and Islam is a way of life, and it is a religion, so both answers are correct. It is a religion that is a way of life. These questions like this come up all the time, and I try to save them, and other people do too. You can start reading those two books if you want. I'm sure Dr. Abdullah.
Yes, we have.
Okay, and I'd like also to thank you thank you for the piece of knowledge which you informed us. Is that a Muslim has to read. A Muslim is a kind of
First
preacher
order to
who
Muhammad
should be always has full knowledge about his religion. And another thing I think that which is one of the strategies of calling on Muslims is to have sufficient knowledge and also to have sufficient knowledge of the Western people, of the Western culture. And I also appreciate Mr. Brother Omar because in his research today, I think he made a comparison between some accusations which are filed against Islam, and he tried to find some answer in the Western culture. So he said that the age of marriages, the early age of marriage for the Prophet Muhammad from Aisha and Mu'mineen, he said that they have some examples. So to provide Western people with some evidence from their own culture, I think this is much more convincing. So thank you for your answer.
Well, I had something to add to that, but I didn't want to interrupt him. In that point, most of your college professors are teachers of some kind. If I stand up here and talk and nobody listens, then it just falls dead. And this is what we should do. When people say things bad about Islam, ignore them, they'll go away. This is the American strategy. I ignore you, you'll go away. They say whatever they want, and then when the Muslims say something, ignore it and go away. We should do the same thing. Allah did not say He needs us to defend this religion. He never asked us to defend the Quran, did He? He said He will Himself. On top of the hurricane last week, if you look at the news today, they have a northeastern storm where it's dumping meters of snow on top of this place where the hurricane was. He doesn't need us. You don't need us to fight with nobody. You don't need us to stand and fight with this Christian who's saying these things. He's an ignorant man. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's just saying something somebody told him, and he probably didn't know what he was saying. The best way to defend Islam, start to follow the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and acting like we're supposed to act, and forget these people. It was ignorant people even during the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He just ignored them. We're no better than he is.
We'll allow the last question.
Last question.
Assistant, we will conclude.
Assalamu alaikum. As the last question, I have a small question. What are the obstacles that you faced after you said the Shahada, other than the reading? Because you said reading was the problem.
The biggest obstacles I had were the other Muslims. They like to tell you things they know is not true. Oh no, this is okay. Or you should do this way. And a lot of people want to tell you things that ain't even correct, not even close. Well, when you pray, you should do it like this. And then when you get a book and read how to pray, you and him are both wrong. I faced problems from the non-Muslims, just like everybody does, but some of the biggest problems were from Muslims. Some Muslims who were my friend the day before, the next day were not my friend anymore. I knew all their secrets. I knew they had been drinking whiskey in Kamis Maché. I knew they had been using prostitutes in Kamis Maché. I knew they were partying and drinking and staying out dancing all night long into almost missing Fajr prayer. And they didn't like that.
With this, we conclude. Thank you very much, Brother George Maxwell. And inshallah, we'll see you next Friday. And also, we encourage you to invite others, to join, because still you can register next Friday, inshallah. And those, as I told you, whether you want to see the lecture, the two lectures, or to invite others, they can visit our website www.islamunveiled.org, and then they will enjoy or upload or even convey these important two lectures that we have. Please, brothers, we'll allow the sisters first to proceed, and then we'll follow. So remain a little bit, please, while we give the chance to our sister to leave the hall. So please, sisters, try to leave the hall in order to allow time for the brothers to follow.
I suggest all of you go buy you a little book like this. It stays in my pocket all the time. There's very few questions that a Christian can't ask me that ain't in here. I don't have to look up the references. I know they're here. I have the verses.
What book is it?
It's just a notebook. No, it's not for sale. For instance, when the Christians ask me why my beard is so long, I ask them, why isn't yours? Because their Bible says they will not trim around their head, nor trim even one hair from their beard. They don't know that.
In the Bible.
Yes, it's in the Bible. So get yourself a book and start writing down your little references so that when you talk to people.
Try to help, sisters, please try to leave the hall because the brothers are waiting here and we wouldn't want to miss the Isha prayer. Sisters, please, you can continue your conversation outside the hall because the brothers are still waiting and they want to catch up with Isha prayer and make ablution, some of them. Yeah. Okay, brother. Assalamu alaikum. See you next Friday.